You know, there are moments in a leader's life when timing isn't just important, it's everything. And what I witnessed last Tuesday will go down as one of the most tone deaf, politically disastrous decisions I've ever seen from any American politician. But here's what nobody's talking about: Trump's decision to hold a campaign rally while Hurricane Helena was destroying the Gulf Coast wasn't just bad timing, it was a calculated political choice that reveals something deeply disturbing about his priorities and judgment. When you're a leader, especially when you're seeking the presidency, people watch not just what you say, but when you choose to say it. And what Trump chose to do while Americans were literally drowning, while families were trapped on rooftops waiting for rescue, while entire communities were being wiped off the map, that choice tells you everything you need to know about who he really is. Let me take you inside the decision-making process that led to this disaster, because what I learned from sources close to Trump's campaign will shock you. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't poor communication or bad scheduling. This was a deliberate choice to prioritize political theater over human suffering, and the consequences are still rippling through American politics in ways that could reshape the entire 2024 race. Hurricane Helena made landfall on Monday night as a Category 4 storm, bringing with it 150 millipede winds and a storm surge that meteorologists were calling unsurvivable for coastal areas. By Tuesday morning, as rescue operations were desperately trying to reach stranded families, as the death toll was climbing hourly, as governors were pleading for federal assistance, Trump was backstage at a rally in Arizona, preparing to deliver what his campaign called a major policy address. The optics couldn't have been worse. While images of devastation were flooding news channels, while the president was coordinating emergency response efforts, while Americans were glued to their televisions praying for the safety of their fellow citizens, Trump was on stage talking about crowd sizes, attacking his political opponents, and making jokes about the media. But here's what makes this so much worse than just bad timing. According to sources inside Trump's campaign, they knew exactly what was happening on the Gulf Coast. They had been briefed on the storm's severity. They understood the scale of the disaster unfolding, and they made a conscious decision to proceed with the rally anyway. Campaign manager Susie Wiles reportedly argued for postponing the event, suggesting that Trump could demonstrate leadership by visiting affected areas or coordinating relief efforts. But Trump overruled her, insisting that he couldn't let a little bad weather derail his campaign schedule. Those are his exact words, according to multiple sources who were in the room. The rally itself was a masterclass in how not to read the room. While Americans were watching rescue boats navigate through flooded neighborhoods, Trump spent 27 minutes talking about his legal troubles. While families were being evacuated from their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs, he complained about unfair media coverage. While emergency responders were risking their lives to save others, he attacked local officials for their poor disaster management. The most shocking moment came when Trump was apparently informed about the rising death toll during a commercial break. According to eyewitnesses, an aide whispered something in his ear, and his immediate response wasn't concern for the victims. It was frustration that the news might overshadow his rally coverage. "Can't we get one day without some crisis stealing our thunder?" he reportedly asked. When he returned to the microphone, instead of addressing the human tragedy unfolding hundreds of miles away, Trump doubled down on his political attacks. He spent another 15 minutes criticizing the administration's economic policies while Americans were literally fighting for their lives. The disconnect was so jarring that even some of his own supporters started leaving early. The reaction was swift and absolutely brutal. Social media exploded with images contrasting rescue operations with Trump's rally. "Trump doesn't care" started trending within hours. News networks began split-screen coverage, showing flooding and destruction on one side and Trump's political theater on the other. The visual was devastating, but the real damage came from unexpected sources. Republican governors from affected states, people who had previously supported Trump, began publicly questioning his judgment and priorities. Governor Sarah Davis of Alabama, whose state was being ravaged by the hurricane, issued a statement that was remarkable for its directness. While we're coordinating rescue operations and trying to save lives, political rallies seem incredibly inappropriate and tone deaf. The human cost of Hurricane Helena was staggering. By Wednesday morning, the death toll had reached 43 people, with hundreds still missing. Entire towns were underwater. Tens of thousands of people were in emergency shelters. The economic damage was being estimated in the tens of billions. And throughout this human tragedy, Trump's team was focused on damage control for his political image. Here's what I know from my own experience with natural disasters during my presidency. These moments test everything about your character and judgment as a leader. When Hurricane Andrew hit Florida in 1992, I immediately suspended campaign activities, coordinated with federal agencies, and focused entirely on the response effort. That's what leaders do. They put human suffering above political calculation. The polling data that emerged in the days following the rally revealed just how badly Trump had miscalculated. His approval ratings dropped 7 points in affected states within 48 hours. More significantly, independent voters who had been leaning toward Trump began moving away from him in large numbers. Focus groups conducted in swing states showed that even Trump supporters were uncomfortable with his priorities during the crisis. The international reaction was also damaging. Foreign media outlets covered the story as an example of American political dysfunction, contrasting rescue operations with political rallies. Allies and adversaries alike took note of a potential future president who seemed more concerned with campaign events than humanitarian crises. Congressional Republicans found themselves in an impossible position. They couldn't defend the timing of the rally, but they also couldn't openly criticize their party's nominee. The result was a series of awkward non-responses and deflections that made them look out of touch with their own constituents' concerns. The psychological impact of Trump's decision reveals something deeper about his leadership style and priorities. According to political psychologists, the inability to suspend personal or political activities during humanitarian crises suggests a concerning lack of empathy and situational awareness that could be dangerous in presidential decision-making. Campaign finance records later revealed another troubling aspect of this story. The Arizona rally was a fundraising event that generated over $2 million for Trump's campaign. Sources within the campaign suggest that the financial considerations played a role in the decision to proceed despite the ongoing crisis. The idea that fundraising took priority over disaster response is deeply disturbing. The media coverage of this incident has been overwhelmingly negative for Trump, but it's also revealed important truths about political priorities and leadership expectations. Americans across party lines expect their leaders to demonstrate basic human compassion and appropriate judgment during crises. Trump's failure to meet this basic standard has resonated far beyond typical political criticism. Looking ahead, this incident could become a defining moment in the 2024 campaign. It's been incorporated into opposition advertising, referenced in candidate debates, and used as an example of Trump's unfitness for office. The visual imagery of political rallies during human suffering is powerful and lasting. The long-term political consequences are still unfolding. Disaster response and emergency management have become more prominent campaign issues as voters consider which candidate they trust to lead during future crises. Trump's Hurricane Helena response has become a case study in how not to demonstrate leadership during emergencies. For affected communities, Trump's decision added insult to injury during their darkest hour. Many residents took his continued campaigning as a sign that their suffering wasn't important enough to interrupt his political ambitions. This perception could have lasting effects on his support in these crucial swing regions. The incident also highlights broader questions about political priorities and public service. When political calculation consistently trumps human compassion, it raises fundamental questions about whether such a person is suited for the responsibilities of presidential leadership. As recovery efforts in Hurricane Helena affected areas continue, the contrast between Trump's political theater and actual leadership during crisis has become a powerful symbol of the choice facing American voters. Sometimes timing isn't just about political strategy, it's about basic human decency and the kind of leadership our country deserves. The lesson from Trump's Hurricane Helena response is clear. In moments of crisis, Americans are watching not just what their leaders do, but what they choose not to do. And sometimes those choices reveal more about character and fitness for office than any policy position or campaign promise ever could.